Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering Cradle Book 12, chapters 14, 15, and 16. In these chapters, Orthos and Little Blue are both real people now. I didn't know this was possible. Maybe I should have, but I didn't. I'm pretty stoked about this. I really am. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Andy. Andy, are you here? Yes, he is. Andy's here in the chat for commissioning this episode. I am so excited. Guys, Owen has been reading ahead of me. When I first started, he hadn't even done his reread of Dread God yet. And he finally caught up and was like, tell me when you get to chapter 16. And then yesterday, I don't remember which chapter it was that he said specifically, but he said something like, tell me when you get to chapter 24. And he said something really satisfying happens. And then, never mind, the more satisfying thing is in chapter such and such. He keeps like being very, very excited. And I don't remember the chapter numbers, so it's fine. But I am really enjoying seeing him. Every time that he has a moment where he's been on his headphones and he has to turn them off, he goes to me, babe, it's so good. So I know that I've got some things to look forward to and I'm excited about it. So these chapters are sort of like, I don't want to say a lull because it's absolutely untrue, but it feels like we're kind of playing catch up, you know? I mean, honestly, that's the fucking whole book, right? Is like everybody's just trying to catch up. But I think you get what I mean in terms of like Lindon is out here and everybody is trying to get to him, get to a place where they can be helpful to him. And it's a sort of, we've moved along with Yaren and Zeal. We finally get to see Mercy. And even though like Little Blue and Orthos are still archlords, it's a massive step forward for the two of them as well, even if their advancement hasn't quite gotten them to anywhere even close to Lindon's level. I mean, let's be real, but they are still like doing so much so quickly. And it's really fun to watch. Like, guys, the whole thing with Mercy, it's so good. So chapter 14 begins with Lindon being completely overwhelmed by the pain of all of Northstrider's memories. He has just completely burnt himself out. And Dross is like, dude, we can't do anything else. You have got to let me process this because I am losing it. And if you do anything more, I'm going to fucking freak out on you. The dragon icon sang its song inside him. It filled him with arrogant confidence. If he admitted defeat here by abandoning Northstrider's power, he wasn't a true dragon. What kind of predator choked on his prey? And I'm like, babe, no offense. I'm not trying to say that you choke on your prey. Exactly. But you really do like bite off a little more than you can chew most of the time. You manage to get it down. Don't get me wrong. But you come pretty close. So I'm just saying maybe, Lindon, you're not a predator. I love you, bud. You are tough as all hell. Predator, though, I don't want you to be that. You know, I just don't. Like, part of it, in a way, it can sound impressive, but, like, not really. Don't do it. So guess who shows up? Fucking Northstrider. And he tells Lindon that if he admits defeat and gives him the bow, he will not only spare him, but save him. And they both stare at him, and I was like, is he for real here? Because I can't tell if the speechless stare that Lindon and Dross give Northstrider is like an "are you kidding me" kind of look, like, do you really think we'd trust you? Or is it, you would really be willing to save us? Or what? Like, my instinct is to be like, I don't believe you. But Northstrider just doesn't really seem like the type of monarch to lie. Malice would lie. She would lie with no compunction whatsoever. Northstrider tends to be like pretty direct, and we've seen him engage in deception. So I'm not trying to say he's honest exactly, because he's not, but I don't feel like an outright lie seems like his style. So I don't know. I think that he was being serious, but it was more like, you're going to save me for what? You know, like, yeah, save me, but I've admitted defeat, and I will then let you take me wherever the fuck you're going and just like go along with you. I doubt it. I think it's that, really. So Lindon is like trying to figure out what the hell he's going to do. He doesn't have it in him to engage in a fucking negotiation. And Northstrider tells him, you need the wisdom to see the world as it is. If you keep ignoring reality, it will crush you. You guys, look, I think it's very, very important to be able to see the world with clear eyes. But I also get really, really tired of people just throwing their hands in the air and being like, well, there's nothing we can do. It is what it is. And it's extra galling when the person saying that is a monarch. And they try and just be like, well, you know, really, this is the fault of the Abaddon. Get out of here. You knew what you were doing. Just get the fuck out of here. You know, like, it just, it's gross. I'm just saying it's gross. And I find Northstrider to be, it's not, there's something about the fact that he is using this sort of veneer of honesty that makes me feel almost more angry, if that makes sense. Like, Malice is literally named Malice, and she is such a manipulator, and it's like definitely gross, but I also can understand that that's her MO. And so a part of me is just kind of like, well, Malice gonna Malice. Northstrider, it feels like he's trying to sort of pretend to be somebody else, and not that's too. It feels like he is sanctimonious, that kind of thing, where he's trying to behave as if the reason I do things is because of like a nobler obligation, instead of it being what it actually is, which is just, I don't want to be a small fish in a big pond. And I think that's what galls me about him, is that there's like this quality of self-delusion about him, you know? So anyway, Lindon just says to him, we will not stop. And it takes a lot for him to even say that. But I appreciate that he is not going to give in to this guy right now. I knew he wouldn't, but you know, I wouldn't even have been that mad at him, because I didn't really know what his other options were going to be here. And like, frankly, neither does Lindon. So at this point, the Dread God is like, bruh, looks like you're going to be real easy to rob pretty shortly. I'm just going to take that arm back. And, you know, sorry about it, but you're not up for it. It's clearly like about to fuck you up. And Dross says, the tiger tried to make deals with us too. Did you see what happened to him? I could show you. Whether you struggle or not, I will have what is mine. For I am the dragon and the sky weeps with my rage. It's a hell of a declaration. I will say that. So Lindon asks Dross if he can call for help. And Dross is like, nah. And then there's all of this attack from above. He just about manages to like protect himself, but they're hitting. He's swatting them away, but you know, it's not like it's landing in such a way that it's pushing him down in a way that it would never if he were in his normal condition. And finally, he's like starting to go through the nether gate, and he hears somebody's authority calling, Lindon, let me help you. And I will tell you what, my friends, I for real was like, is this Silent King doing something? Like, I started to just be really worried because I know the Silent King is dead, but like, he's not. Like, he's not really. Like, what else can he do? I don't feel like I have a full understanding of his abilities. And plus, there's echoes of the Dread Gods in the Labyrinth. So, like, I know the Labyrinth's technically under his control, and so it shouldn't be able to move against him. But I don't know. So I got real worried. He says the Weeping Dragon is here, and they just say, then hurry up. And Dross is just like, go ahead, I guess. And I loved, it made me so happy here. We've got Larian of the 8-Man Empire and Delrek of the Shan. Y'all, Larian, I love her so much. I will never get over her being like, pshoo, fake fighting and then feeding this bullshit story to Rhaegon Shen. Like, honestly, what a complete queen. Adore her. So there's that to begin with. And then in this section, I just really appreciate her understanding her limitations. She uses the bow, but is like, okay, this is no fucking joke. God, I can't believe he was able to use this. Like, you know? And I also just, I like the fact that she is out here conning monarchs. Like, we stand a queen. So when she's like, give me the bow and I'll probably give it back. And Lindon's just like, oh yeah. And he just passes out. It's like a relief to hand it over because even in his soul space, the shit is weighing him down. So she takes it and is like, ooh, baby, this is a fucking bow. Like, I just picture her running her hands over it like you would walk over like a muscle car and just, you know, just sort of drag your fingertips over the paint job and be like, this is nice. And Delric is like, you're going to have to give it back. I do not want a dude who's basically part Dread God coming after us. And she's like, well, you know, maybe I may as well will. Maybe I will. So let's try out this bow. Speaking of bows, we then go over to Mercy. And guys, this is something that I really like about Will's writing is that I will interpret something a certain way and not even realize I did it. And then he will reference it. So this starts off, despite being an archlady now, Mercy felt like an outsider in the battle between Yaren Zeal, Yushi, and the Storm Sage. And I was like, oh yeah, I saw her as an outsider as well. Like, it just didn't feel like her fight. She wasn't participating. It didn't really feel like she was bringing any particular emotion to things. Like, Yaren was full of rage and Zeal was full of like anger. But like, rage is one thing. His is an old anger. You know what I mean? And sadness as well. They both felt like they were passionate in a way about this fight. And I wasn't getting that from her. And I had mentally sort of disconnected her from the proceedings in a way that hadn't occurred to me while it was happening. And then he points it out here and I'm like, oh, yeah. So let's see. She sent arrows flying at the Thunder Fairy and helped Zeal evade the Sage's attacks. But the other two felt a passion she didn't. Oh my God, guys. I didn't say what I said because of that line. I don't think I even remembered that line. See, this is what I'm talking about. Thank you, Will. That was a coincidence. Like, I know that I read this section, but that particular line did not register for me. I was distracted thinking about her shooting at the Thunder Fairy. Mercy was more worried about the broader battle. While the sages and heralds clashing had cleared a wide field around them, there was still a fight between House Aurelius and House Shen. And House Shen has the numbers. So Mercy is looking around and thinking about how her mom would focus on the big fighters, and that she would also go after Shen because of a grudge. But Mercy is not going to do things the way that her mother does. So she's like, okay, so what am I going to do? And thinks about how a high-level battle isn't worth anything if low-level ones don't work out. So she tells Zeal to hold on, and she goes to the Aurelius. The Aureliuses? The Aurelius. I don't know how to pluralize, like, not even pluralize. What do you call that? Possessivize? I'm making up a lot of words today, kids. Strap in. They were holed up in a building that was half ruined and covered in ash, like most everything in eyesight. Some of the lords targeted her with techniques immediately, but not as many as she'd expected. Even most of those attacks cut off half-formed. And she's just like, oh, nice. I forgot that they have this bloodline gift so they can tell. Like, they have really, really quick reactions, but they can also very quickly sense that I am not somebody that they need to worry about. And she is thinking about Claudia, and I always think her name is Claudia in the audiobook, but Cladia, not Claudia. The Sage of 1,000 Eyes had many eyes of light Madra swarming around her like a cloud of bees. And look, that's dope and everything, but also I don't like it. So, I'm sure it's very practical. Great. Could you have made them like literally anything else? Make them actual bees. That'd be cute. I get it. Your whole thing is like, I see as a command. Totally get it. Definitely get it. Respect it. But hear me out. Ew. Don't do it. Make it something else. So Mercy says, I'm here to help. And the sage asks if Ethan left a message. And Mercy has to be like, I wasn't there for that. I'm sorry. But when she asks Mercy, how are you with taking orders? And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, girl, you could not ask for somebody better. Mercy immediately just says, tell me where you need me. And she gives her instructions. I love this so much. Take the ship down. Overlord class force barrier, basic strip protections, and the most advanced crewman is an overlord. His path is... While Claudia's voice was still explaining the enemy forces, Mercy had taken the ship down. One arrow broke the barrier. A shade step and an armored punch tore apart the scripted hull, and strings of shadow bound the entire crew. I mean... Bitch, yes. Like, I was so excited for her. Are you serious? Mercy? Oh my God, girl. She's doing it. And I know I sound super patronizing, but I just was like, she's my little cinnamon roll. She's just been through it. She really has. She's had some really rough times. Everybody's had rough times, but hers have been on a personal level in a way that's like different. And I just, I wanted to like make her a little goofy trophy with like, macaroni glued to it, like something silly. She would fucking love it. She would. She'd be all about that kind of thing. I really realized that like in some ways I don't picture this person, but I assign their energy a little to Mercy, and that is Mabel from Gravity Falls, if those of you who like that show. She's more serious than Mabel, don't get me wrong, but it's that brightness and brings light is like exactly right. That's exactly right. So Asher says, I just imagine Claudia walking into a room and saying, be not afraid. Yeah, man, those fucking what are they? Cherubim? Is that how you say that? Them shits were crazy. Somebody was tripping balls. So the script pushed against her ruler technique, but enough people were affected by the nightmares of her dream of darkness that the formation weakened. She whipped blades of shadow at the boundary flags planted around the circle, and though the blades were broken by techniques, a bombardment of Aurelius striker techniques hit at the same time. That took enough pressure off that Mercy used strings of shadow to bind a group of 100 golds in a massive spider web. What's next? And I just really enjoy that throughout this exchange, Claudia is getting more and more happy. You know, she's clearly been in a desperate situation, was not sure how she was going to get out of it. And this girl rolls up, and I think at some point somebody is just like, they said that we were going to be getting one of Ethan's students, but I will be honest, I didn't think it was going to be you. She just comes in and absolutely fucking mows these guys down. And I say that like she's killing them, like she's capturing a lot of them, which is even harder, you know? So here we go. The sage uses her see command and makes like Mercy's vision really specific and clear, which is like a really fun, neat ability that is different from the bloodline ability. And I find that like compelling and kind of want to know more about how that works. And I love this. She shot every weak point of the Archlord at once. They were just places he couldn't block as easily. He did still block, but they put him on the back foot. So an overlord tried to block her punch, but his arm broke. Mercy then dragged an underlady from her cloud with strings of shadow, but that was as far as she got before she had to twist back to avoid the Archlord's sword. And she dodged, and it's like nothing. And she giggles because she's, oh my God, I just dodged that like it was nothing. And because she giggles, the Archlord's really offended, which like, she's not laughing at him, but there is no way that you're fighting against somebody and they dodge you and start laughing. There is no way that you don't think they are laughing at you. Like, let's be real. And I feel for him because that's one of the worst feelings, is to be like really trying your best and a person to be basically like, what a fucking joke you are. But I am so happy for her. So then again, where to? He was my last Archlord before you showed up. He needs a break. He'll sleep when he's dead, which would have been about now without you. Let's go faster. Too risky. A reasonable pace, and we can hang on until your friends lend us support. How about an unreasonable pace? The sage let out a breath. Hold for instructions. All right. You'll have to let me know when you're hitting your limits. Mercy leaned forward. I'll try to find them. If that isn't the most baller line. I love that when our people are being the biggest badasses and using these one-liners, it's never because they're trying to be badasses with one-liners. It's always just a thing they're saying. They just happen to be saying something and they're totally sincere in the moment, but they are wrecking shit while they say it and just completely like BDE all the way. I'll try to find them. I mean, let's be real. That is like, that's just, satisfying. So she pushed herself faster and faster until the sage had to give her one-word commands backed with illustrations from the floating eyes. As Mercy fought, more eyes gathered around her as the sage's directions became more complex. She passed over the battle like the fall of night, changing everything, and as she did, she gathered more and more eyes, until she finally ran out of Madra. She stopped, panting and eyes spinning, as the banners of House Shen retreated. This bitch sailed in and made them retreat. Like, I just cannot. I love this bitch so much. Ugh. You know, I don't know if like she has any interest in having kids, but Mercy is going to be a kick-ass mom if she ever decides to, because she has that like energy of just constantly hyping you up, which is amazing for friends, but like kids need that. And considering the mom she had, I just want to see her get to do that for her child, since she didn't get it at all, you know? And we have a beautiful moment here where Claudia tells her how many more people, how Shen had than them. And I can't believe that, like, basically you saved all of our asses. And says, then you remind me of your mother. Mercy stiffened. Not as she is now. That would not be a compliment. But as she was long ago. If that woman had looked into the future and seen that she would have a daughter like you, she would have bragged to no end. Mercy's eyes misted, and she wiped them with the back of her hand. Oh, I love this moment so much. So then we go to Yushi's POV. And it's always fun when you go into the POV of an enemy, especially, like, if you go into the POV of one of the enemy monarchs, it's different. Because you know that some shit's going to go down, but they're not going to die. Like, it's very unlikely. If you go into the POV of an enemy that you have never been in their POV before, it's a guarantee they're going to come out on the wrong end of whatever's going to happen. That's not necessarily death, but they're definitely going to have their entire derriere handed to them one way or another. So this opens with Yushi, the Thunder Fairy's POV, and I'm like, oh shit. Because I actually have grown to sort of like enjoy her. I don't like her because she's fighting for Shen. And if you are at all associated with that dude, just fuck off forever. Like, he is the devil. But I also can like appreciate the reputation that she has built for herself, and also her impatience with fucking Sage of Calling Storms, who just is such a psycho. And the fact that you could tell she's clearly a little resentful of having to like be paired up with him at all. So let's see. Okay, here it is. The Sage of 1,000 Eyes was an annoying opponent, but she had a clear weakness: straightforward combat. And basically the summary here is, you have all these eyes and you can like be amazing tactically and plan ahead really well and give good counsel, but you aren't necessarily going to be up for it when it comes to just combat straight up hand to hand. It's a different situation. And that is definitely a weak point for her. So Yushi is just coming in with like a vibe of, I don't really have to worry too much. Like, I got to keep my eye on her, but I'm not concerned. And then Mercy shows up. And all of a sudden shit begins to turn. And Yushi's like seeing that it's gonna, but it happens so much faster than she thinks it will. And it says, that wouldn't have been enough, or that should have been the case. Yaren's strength was out of the ordinary, even for heralds, but her moonlight bridge was exhausted, and Yushi was quick. Yaren should have been simple enough to drive away, if not for those sword strikes that drained color from the world. And Yaren, there's like a vibe when she strikes that it's just like, oh, it's gonna land. Don't you worry about that part. And it will kill you. So I wouldn't try and fight that either. And it's not perfect yet. So that's the only reason it absolutely hasn't killed her. But it's really, really close. And Yushi is extremely unnerved at somebody Yaren's age getting this close to perfecting it to begin with. Like, the fact that she can even practice it is just insane. Yaren's attacks felt like they came from a herald centuries old. So she is like, I need fucking backup here. Where's the storm sage? And she's expecting that he's playing with his food, because we know that is exactly what he does, because he's fucking nuts. And she turns and looks and is like, oh, wait a second. He is not playing. Zeal is fucking him up. And he's getting really pissed, like genuinely mad about it. And she's like, I don't get it. Zeal has no fucking Madra left. How is he still using this divine treasure? How is he slowing him down and using, like, this doesn't make any sense. What is going on? And like the ability to slow him is one of the most effective, potentially guaranteed ways to kill this dude. So she felt House Shen beginning to retreat and sent a coded message to the Storm Sage to tell him to flee. Calling Storms didn't respond, but Yushi didn't wait, which I'm like, good for you, girl, bail. And she starts to fly off and then feels a warning in her spirit. And there's a striker technique coming at her. Claudia Aurelius gave her a distant, vague smile. More balls of light were forming around her. So Yushi's like, all right, enough of this shit. And she's going to take the sage down. Like, that's the plan here, is to straight up kill her. I am done dealing with Thousand Eyes. I'm just tired of this bullshit. So she's gearing up. And then she notices that Thousand Eyes is looking over her shoulder and nodding at somebody. And Yushi's like, wait, what? And starts to turn. And then all of a sudden, silver runes flashed around Yeren, and her motions blurred as she moved for calling storms. Her sword passed right through his neck. Lightning exploded against her, and she staggered, but the protection of the shield icon was layered on her already durable herald's body. And I'm over here like, oh, sword passed through his neck, forgetting he can still put his ass together again. And granted, it's like taking longer and longer because his shit is beginning to get exhausted. But I really thought that was the decisive blow. And then to find that he's reforming yet again, y'all, I was infuriated. I was so disgusted. And she's realizing, like, as soon as I said to retreat, they both turned on him at the same time. And she decides she's going to go after Zeal. A sword of pure lightning stabbed at him, but Yeren met it with a forged crimson claw from her weapon's binding, which I would love to see, like, what that even looks like. So something pings off her skull, and it's like a pebble, and it's Claudia again. And she turns and is just like, what the fuck? You know what? That's enough. And she finally says, we admit defeat. And all of a sudden, the world turns gray. Silver runes flashed behind her, and suddenly the entire world was moving too slowly. That's when her premonition of danger turned to ice-cold terror. Zeal was clearly out of Madra, but he had still used a working of the Rune Queen's array to slow Yushi's time. She gathered willpower to push against it, returning the world to normal, but she couldn't fully break it and defend against Yeren at the same time. And this is really giving the slow fruit from One Piece. I don't know how many of you know what I'm talking about, but if you know, you know. And it was just really like, that's the vibe. And she is doing everything she can. She's got like constructs that are only for emergencies, and they get fucking annihilated. And then she's reaching into her void key for the one thing. It's a very expensive gate stone, and it is meant to be broken only in case of like imminent death to bring her to Regan Shen immediately, and it's gone. And she turns and sees Claudia just basically like tossing it like in her hand, and she's like, wait, what? How did she do that? Because it was in a sealed void space. I would also like to know that. Did Yeren's strike break the void space and cause it to come out? Like, how did she do it? How? And she yells to Yeren, mercy. And Yeren jerks her chin over to where Mercy's flying and just says, you're looking for her. And then cuts off her head. And I was like, whoa, that was cold. And then we go to Zeal's POV. The moment Yaren killed her enemy, the cry of a phoenix echoed through the surrounding aura. She stiffens in place and her eyes roll back. This is the point of what she's trying to do, is to consume power. But it's something that takes practice, and she's not totally ready. And he is just like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is like all happening at once. I am fucking drained. This asshole's still reforming, and she's kind of out of it for the moment. And Yushi's remnant, it's really fascinating. So it's bound the way that the remnants were bound in the experiments that she was doing in the pocket world. And it's drifting behind her. And when Yaren says, "Are you the leftovers?" she says, "I am what you have not absorbed. You will digest me as you are able, and eventually we will merge." Can I just say the utter indignity of having to say, "You'll digest me," to the person who took my head off? That would be a wrap for me. I wouldn't have a remnant. I would just fucking disappear into the ether, like completely dissolved by shame, Madra. I don't know. It would just be too much. Just being like, yeah, I may upset your tummy a little bit, but, just taking an acid. Like, literally humiliating. I can't imagine. That's so, ugh. Look, I didn't like this woman, but I feel like she deserved better. I feel like this sucks for her. If there's anybody I would like to see this happen to, it's not necessarily her. There's I could name 10 other people off the top of my head. Anyway, Yaren says, "What's the plan with him?" gesturing to the Storm Sage. And, Zeal has a moment of just being like, I could just fuck him up, but he doesn't really feel committed to that. Like, a part of him still wants it, but he's kind of grown past it. So as soon as the head has ears, he says, "I want you to know who killed you." And he has his hammer and he lifts it and brings it down, but there's no enforcer technique behind it. So the hammer crashes down, but the Storm Sage catches it. And he's grinning and starts to open his mouth to talk. And Yaren cuts him in half and says, "Nope." Now, I don't know if he can reform again. I'm going to go ahead and think that this is it for him. But I am a little bit disappointed that Zeal didn't get to deal the killing blow. Like, I am wondering if he will be upset by that. I have a feeling that he'll be conflicted. He's pretty practical, so I think he will understand if he had let the sage continue to reform, it would have been a stupid move, and it was better for Yaren to step in before it got too much further. But I think he will also kind of feel shitty at the fact that he wasn't able to do it, that he was so drained that he couldn't use a technique. And it was really because the whole, "I want you to know who killed you," he's letting him reform in order to say this. And it's really reminding me of, in Clash of Kings, Storm of Swords. Storm of Swords is the one, I think, right? Where, we have the fight between the Viper and the Mountain. And the Viper just wants the Mountain to confess his crimes and won't just put him down quickly, even though he's winning the fight. He is so concerned with this symbolic victory that he winds up falling into a trap, basically, and getting killed himself, even though he was fucking winning the whole time. Which is kind of like George R. R. Martin's jam, is that he will have somebody be winning the big picture, it seems, but they're really actually losing the big picture. It's just they've won all of these other things, and so you get complacent. So this kind of reminded me of that, of like Zeal's letting him reform in front of him just to be able to be like, I want you to know. And for why, Zeal? That's not actually anything. It's there, he would know who killed him either way. And even if he didn't, who cares? Take care of this guy. But he needs some kind of like closure for himself. And so he's letting that get the better of him here, I feel like. And if you had just done it before he like got his fucking hands back or whatever, I don't know. Maybe you could have taken him and it would have been you, not Yaren. But anyway, doesn't matter. That's how that ends. And then we go to chapter 16. God, sorry. MX Shard is over here. It's just, with so many comments. I'm sorry I missed them. I love Mercy. They're very genuine. Let's see. Yushi feels like someone who could have been an awesome good guy if Shen wasn't in charge. Yeah, agree. I really wish Red Faith was a crappier soulsmith. Calling storms was just absurd. Yeah, that is brought up a few times, that like whatever his like object is that's keeping him alive was created by Red Faith. And I just keep getting mad at him all over again. Like, it's just so easy for me to get kind of caught up in what a little weirdo Red Faith was and forget about the real damage that he did. Like, he caused genuine harm. She's over there was a great moment and very Ethan-like theft moment. Very Ethan-like theft moment? I'm not sure what theft. I'm not sure what you mean there, MX Shard. Sorry. Phoenix Song Consume is terrifying. Yes, it is. I think he'd see it as a we got him. Okay. I hope so. Like, that's my ideal, is that's how he would see it. But I don't know. He's just been so fixated on this guy in such a personal way that a part of me is just worried that it's like, I wanted this to go how I imagined, you know? I ramble a lot. Sorry, don't apologize. I just didn't realize how much was there until I looked and I was like, oh shit, I missed a bunch of stuff. So we go back to Lindon. He is fucking struggling. And the thing is that the whole point of taking all of this power from Northstrider was supposed to be he goes back to Little Blue and Orthos and siphons off some of Northstrider's power into both of them for them to consume. But they are not here. And he doesn't even want to think about the fact that he wishes they were here, because he knows that they will sense that and then they are going to try and come to him, and he does not want that to happen right now. So then we go to Orthos. He raised himself to all fours, power cycling through him. And when it says he raised himself to all fours, that sounds like a turtle still, right? Like, I'm just not thinking anything. Very, very tricky of you, sir. She looked solid as a human and was much taller. To them, it had been a week since Zeal and Mercy had left. Little Blue had finished the course Lindon had left for her. They stood together, a pair of archlords. They had reached the end of their training regimen. Ideally, they would then sit and cycle for a few more days to stabilize their spirits and grow used to their new powers, but Lindon needed them. So, Lindon is like needing them but trying not to need them, and they can sense that, and they're like, so we really do need to go. And they can't cut into the way, so they decide to try and use a construct to send a signal, which works. We go to Larian, and she is able to see it. And it says, pocket world trapped, I think is what it says. But before she sees it, she's just like, she's thinking about sharing power and how she could be a monarch sometimes. Others of the Empire needed to borrow the power of the group when they were hitting the Weeping Dragon, or when they had to take a hit that would have killed them otherwise. Now, I really, really need our friends to get this like technique. This is a top secret technique, right? That the one-man empire or the 8-man empire can be monarchs whenever, and nobody knows how they did it. Everybody has tried to get the info out and nobody is talking. And this could work for our guys. It could be like this for them? Can we do it? Can we be a unit that like trades monarch level power? That would be amazing. I am assuming all of their people are at the same level though, and not everybody on Lindon's team is. So I don't know how much of a stumbling block that is. And she's just like, I'm going to have to take some power to heal myself. It says like her twisted spine, her strained Madra channels, and her missing eye. And I was like, damn, missing eye last on the list. That feels like I don't know, should be higher. I'm just saying. And she's like used this bow and is just like, my God, this shit is really, really intense. Let's see. She wrapped her spirit around the bow, focusing her willpower and pulling back the string. Lindon may have the muscle to use the weapon, but he wasn't a bow sage. She could do things with arrows that he couldn't imagine, as long as her soul didn't break. So she pulls and looses. The dragon writhes. It's working. And she coughs up blood, drops the bow, and almost falls. And is just like, wow, that is so embarrassing. I can't believe I dropped my weapon. I'm a fucking liability. I should probably bounce because I am just going to fuck everybody else up. And this is when she sees Pocket World trapped and is just like, oh, all right, yeah, no. And she calls him out with her friend. So this is the first time we hear this, guys. Two people walked out, but not ones Larian recognized. The Archlord man had weathered tar-black skin and gray hair. He wore dark leather that looked as though it had been made from dragon hide, with bits of armor strapped to it. The Archlady had navy hair the color of the deep ocean and skin like a summer sky. She carried a tank of something under one arm, something that felt spiritually powerful. She recognized their eyes and the feel of their Madra. The lords were black with circles of bright red, while the ladies were blue with circles of white. Larian had seen eyes like that before. He's in there. We know, the man said in a deep, rumbling voice. Thank you for your help. And you guys, I was so startled. I did not know that this was possible, and I didn't really think that if Orthos had the option that he would take human form. I really didn't think he would. And I won't say like I'm disappointed that he did. That's not exactly it. I think I just feel a little bit of like grief for his old form. I'm going to miss Turtle Orthos. You know, I'm excited for this new Orthos and I think it's cool and I'm happy for him. But I just think a part of me is like, oh, wow, that's the end of an era. Like Turtle Orthos is no more. That's sad. You know, it's just, he's growing up. It's just so sad, guys. Asher says, I think the 8-man empire is a mixture of sages and heralds. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And like, since we've got a bunch of archlords, also the amount of times people quote cough up blood in this book is incredibly distracting. I'll be honest, Asher, I did not notice that at all. Like, I totally get what you, because I'll be very distracted by the same phrase used over and over, but that's not one that I noticed at all. So Mimic Shard, spirits and sacred beasts can spend time in Soulfire to change their forms. Human is very Madra efficient, and they probably decided to take every advantage. Yeah, and I knew that sacred beasts could, I guess. I didn't think he would. And for spirits, it didn't occur to me, or not didn't occur to me. I don't think I knew that spirits could simply take human form. Like, there's probably been examples of it that you could point to, and I'd be like, oh, okay, that's what was going on there. But I don't feel I was really clocking it at the time. Evil says he can use Soulfire to change his form at any time. Oh, so he could go back to his old turtle self. Okay. Well, that's good. okay. I'm not like I said, I wasn't mad at the change. I just was a little bit like, oh, wow. But if he can go back to it, then sure, good for him. So we go back to Lindon's POV, and Dross is like, oh my God, guys, hi. And he recognizes Orthos, but it takes a second, and is like, oh my God, and can see his age. It's just like a totally different thing, because with a turtle, it's hard to tell. And a person, he's like, oh wow, yeah, he's old, like, goddamn. And then Little Blue, rather than a spirit, she resembled a woman made up to look like one. Her skin was pale blue but solid and opaque, and her deep navy hair was actually hair. And she gives a cheer when she sees him, and I was immediately like, is she talking? Like, what kind of cheer was it? I really wanted to know. So later when she speaks, I was like, okay, yeah. I felt like she should be able to speak. I didn't think she was going to particularly want to, though, because you just always got the impression that she was able to communicate perfectly well, even though she wasn't speaking. Like, everybody always knew exactly what she meant. It wasn't like there was ever a sense of frustration coming from her that she was trying to get a point across and people weren't getting it. If it had been like that, then I would think maybe she'd be very eager to talk. But that was not an obstacle for her. So I felt like, yeah, just stick with what you've been doing. Like, you know, so Lindon hands over some of their power, first by shaking Orthos's hand, and he also hands over the dragon icon authority. He had 1,000 memories of dragons, and now he understood what they meant. Dross helped him convey that meaning to Orthos. No one had spent longer meditating on the nature of dragons than Orthos. The dragon icon clicked like a key into a lock, covering the ceiling of the labyrinth in its image. And I thought that was so cool that he can just basically be like, I know this is your jam, right? How about I just give you this fucking upgrade to that particular aspect? Like, what would your aspects be, guys? That somebody could just hand you power because they're like, oh yeah, this is the fucking icon. I mean, there's so many things that I could say. I'm going to say a whisk. I would manifest a whisk icon because I like to cook, and a whisk could be savory or sweet. You could use that for anything. And it's very distinctively like a whisk. Like, I could choose a spoon, but a whisk is better. And a knife feels threatening. It's not food necessarily. You could use a pan, like a frying pan, but that feels savory. I want something that's universal. Anyway, so then we go to Lindon's and Orthos's squeeze contest. Basically, Orthos wants very much to beat Lindon at a kind of dick measuring contest. And unfortunately, he is just so not there yet. And Lindon feels a little bit bad because he knows Orthos wants to like show off, but it's simply not fair because he's quite out of his league. And he tries to just be encouraging, but Orthos is like, don't fucking patronize me. Show me what you can do. And he's like, I don't think you want. And he's like, no, do it. And by the time his hand starts shaking, he finally says to stop. But when he pulls his hand back, it's all fucked up. So that when Little Blue wants to do this with him, he has to use his other hand because the one is still like recovering. So I love this so much. He gives Little Blue some power. Let's see. She could handle the full density of his Madra. Northstrider's powers wouldn't help her as much as they'd helped Orthos, but there were still benefits. His blood essence in particular, his physical strength, would help her form a real body. As much as she looked like a human now, she was still fundamentally a spirit. That was about to change. So he does this, and Dross pops up and is starting to be like, hey, just a reminder that, oh, never mind, it's happening. Let's see. Spirits reached Harold in the opposite way that humans and sacred beasts did. Rather than manifesting their remnant and integrating with it, they had to form their spirit into a body. And you guys, I know that we've talked before about like how wild it is that you can manifest your own remnant and then absorb that. But I just really want to reiterate how fucking insane that is. And like everybody's remnant looks so specific. And imagine if you weren't as unflappable as the Sage of Red Faith and you manifested your remnant and it was that weirdo skeleton with the eyes all around it. Wouldn't you be like, what the fuck? Like, I just really, what would my remnant look like? That's one that I have no idea on. I want to like take some online quiz and find out, here's what your remnant would look like. You know, they're truly completely flabbergasted on that one. So let's see, here it is. The storm of power settled down and Little Blue opened her eyes. They were similar to the eyes she had before, but now they glistened like jewels. From a seated cycling position, Little Blue stuck both fists into the air. Yay! She said. Can you speak? Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy, like, even though she can speak, she only barely does. Only a little bit. And this is when Orthos is like, well, you need a name because Little Blue is not the name of a person. And she points to herself like, I'm a person. He says, I mean, no, you are, but like, it's like a pet name. And Lindon's like, do you want to change your name? And she very, very insistently does not. I do enjoy the back and forth anytime they have to pick a name on something. Let's see. Oh, I love this so much. So, I forgot that Dross says, we saw a Little Blue Fishing Company in Moongrave, didn't we, Lindon? We did. She knows words. Say something. Say Dross. Little Blue flicked Dross in the forehead. When he blasted across the room and slammed into the wall, she giggled. Oh shit. She's a little bit chaotic. I like it. So she wants to do grips with Orthos and they wind up in a draw. And Lindon has to step in to get them to stop. And it's very clear when they're forced to stop. Orthos is a little bit cranky at the fact that he can't beat Little Blue. Like, in his mind, he has always been bigger and always been stronger. And it has been a default that at the very least, he will wind up stronger than she is. And I totally get that. But also, dude, remember that the willpower training, you were the first to go down. So you should be kind of looking at her in terms of catching up also, because you were behind her. So just a reminder, that wasn't like a one-off accident. She has more of a connection, I think, with Lindon and can benefit more directly in some ways because of how unformed she was when they bonded initially, whereas Orthos was already old and was suffering from madness and had many setbacks. Like, it doesn't really surprise me too much that Little Blue is able to be more connected to Lindon in this way. So anyway, the ceiling like shakes and dirt rains down and Lindon's like, all right, we got to do this. So you guys stay here. Or no, not stay here. Stay behind me. Do what Dross tells you to do. He had hoped to face down the Weeping Dragon with all 7 of them, but everything had gone wrong. Now they'd have to try their best with 4. And I'm like, no, you won't. No, you won't. You're going to get some backup, my friend. Don't you worry. They're going to be there. I don't know how long it'll take. I don't know how it'll happen. It'll happen, though. Don't worry. We just have to give them a little bit of time somehow. Can they I was trying to say dip, and I was also trying to say duck, and it just came out as dick. And that is not what I wanted to say. Can they dip back into the pocket world at this point? The portal's busted. I know, but the pocket world is still technically there. Can they use the way to get back in, recharge, and then join Lindon? I'm assuming no. That their like ability to control the way is just not quite strong enough to do that yet. I wish they could. I really do. Well, that's it, kids. So I'm going to look at what the next episode's chapters are going to be. But I am really excited. I'm just really here for Little Blue, especially because I don't really know what she can do. Like, it seems like what we've seen so far have been a lot of techniques that mirror Lindon's. So I don't know what she's got that's her own up her sleeve necessarily. And of course, Mercy, I'm just so happy for her. I'm really wondering about Zeal. I want to be in his head again. But of course, we haven't been back to Machiel and Osriel in a minute. And it's been a while. I mean, that was in chapter 3 or something? So maybe we're due. 17 and 18. You guys. That is such a short section. Look at this. 31 pages. But it was the only way. 17 and 18 only next week. Not next week. Next episode. So that'll be Thursday. Y'all, I want to read more than that. All right, I gotta wrap it up. All right, guys. I appreciate you all so much. And thank you again for coming and chatting and hanging out with me. Thank you so much, Andy, for commissioning this. And Andy, also, there's another part of the booking where there's a long gap. And I'm going to look at maybe moving things, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do that. I just hate to have a gap right at the end. Literally, you guys, there's going to be a week of nothing because I took some time off and then the last 2 sections, and it's going to be agony, but maybe I just have to be a grown up and deal with it. I don't want to. It feels like I'm the boss. I shouldn't have to just deal with anything. I should just be able to do what I want. But also, that's simply not how anything ever works. So I guess this is my willpower training. I'm not good at it. All right. We love you. Until next time. Toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.